Hey everybody! So today we get to talk about arachnids, which is one of my favorite subjects. So let's get going with that. Now, first of all, we've been talking about phylum Arthropoda, and we've been talking about four big subphylums within that phylum. We have already talked about the crustaceans, the marine arthropods. We've also talked about Myriapoda, or the myriapods, which is the centipedes and the millipedes. And the two that we have left to talk about are the arachnids and the insects. Now, people have a love and hate relationship with arachnids, and so I actually want to spend a decent amount of time on this. With myriapods and crustaceans, I did just a very fast, brief overview. I'm definitely going to go into more details with arachnids. I hope, if you're like a lot of people and you have a fear of spiders, that some of this information might help you overcome that fear, because they're actually really cool animals. So let's get right into it. Now, arachnids belong to a group called the chelicerates. You can say chelicerates or chelicerates. And it's a really ancient group, and it includes a lot of different animals you might be familiar with. The horseshoe crabs that we just talked about with their blue blood, spiders, ticks, mites, and scorpions. Now, chelicerates are divided into two what we call tagmata, which is just another fancy science word for segments. So they have two segments, one that we call a cephalothorax and another one that's called the abdomen. So if you look in this top right-hand picture right here, the front part of the spider is the cephalothorax. The back part is the abdomen. And cephalo, anytime you see that word cephalo, it means something to do with the head. So that helps me remember which segment comes first. The cephalothorax is close to the head. Now we're going to be talking about a lot of these different parts and why they're important for the spider. Now, arachnids have 6 pairs of cephalothoracic appendages, and that includes chelicerae, something called pedipalps. The chelicerae are up on the front of the animal, like fangs. The pedipalps look like 2 little short stubby legs in the front of the spider, and a lot of times, like on jumping spiders that I've shown you video clips of before, they move those and they're pretty animated with those pedipalps. And that is one of my favorite science words, by the way, pedipalps. Just say it for a second, it's fun to say, pedipalp. So they have those chelicerae, which are like their fangs, the pedipalps, and then they have 4 pairs of legs, or 8 legs. Now, something about all arachnids is that they lack mandibles, which is the fancy science word for jaws. So they don't have anything to chew with. They don't chew their food. So they lack mandibles, and they don't have any antennae, which is unlike all of the other members of the arthropods that we've been studying. They all, the centipedes, the millipedes, the crustaceans, the insects all have antennae, but the arachnids do not. So the pedipalps, and you can see on this spider in the top of this slide, the pedipalps are used to catch prey. They're also used for sensory, sometimes for reproduction as well. Jumping spiders move them as a form of communication as well. So they're multi-purpose appendage. Now, like I said, arachnids include scorpions, ticks, mites, something called a harvestman. You might not be familiar with that word, harvestman. Most of us call a harvestman a daddy longlegs, which is right here in this picture. And then true spiders as well are in this group. Now, they're mostly free-living, so not parasitic, and they're mostly terrestrial, so on land. And if you look worldwide, the region that they prefer is a dry and warm region. Now, most arachnids are predaceous, so they're predators. They have fangs, they have claws, they have venom, venom glands, and or stingers. Now, as I was saying earlier, arachnids have no jaws, they have no mandibles, so that means that they have to ingest liquid food. And that might be confusing because you see these pictures here of these spiders eating something big, and so how are they eating it without jaws? So how they eat is they typically feed by releasing digestive enzymes over or into their prey, causing the prey's tissue to liquefy. Then they suck up the pre-digested liquid. So it's like a fly or an insect slurpee. They usually have a strong sucking pharynx with which they ingest the fluids and soft tissues from the bodies of their prey. Well, let's check out this video clip really quick. If it loads. If it doesn't, I apologize.
Welcome to the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards.
Skip past this.
Who is the wildest planet?
Like many spiders, this femme fatale sits in her web, her tool for everything. There, she waits for food to come to her. That's not as easy as it sounds. She has 8 eyes, but barely uses them. She perceives much of her world through her hairy legs. She finds her prey mainly by sensing vibrations along her web. Then, she charges blindly across her high wire grid.
Now, not all spiders use webs. We'll talk about that.
First, she bites. Neurotoxins paralyze the struggling moth. Digestive enzymes turn its insides into goo. Then she wraps it up. Her back legs pull silk from her spinneret and encase the moth. The wrapping keeps the spider out of harm's way, and if she's already eaten, it preserves the moth for a later meal.
Now that spider you should recognize, that's a deadly one that we have here in Utah, the black widow.
There are no forks and knives in Spiderland, and no teeth either.
That's how you can tell, is that red shape on her
Instead,
abdomen there.
she sucks up the insides of her bug burrito as a liquid lunch.
Bug burrito.
Even a male of the species is fair game.
Dating is not good for black widow males.
He approaches her with an 8-toed dance step that vibrates her web with a clear message. I'm your boyfriend, not your breakfast. She lets him approach. He spools his sperm into her. But once his dance moves are over, so is he. She can't help herself. It's just too easy.
Ooh, brutal. Okay, so let's get back to this PowerPoint presentation. So black widows, their mating rituals are obviously very bad for the males, for sure. Now, spiders capture their prey and feed in a lot of different ways, and you saw with the black widow they used a web. But wolf spiders, which we have a lot of here in Utah, jumping spiders, fishing spiders, they all chase down their prey and inject them with poison. One of the only spiders that kind of freaks me out a little bit is a wolf spider. I really have had them run after me, and I'll describe that in class a little bit better. But they have chased me down, and we have a few of them here in Utah. Now, another way that some spiders find their food or get their food is a trapdoor spider. They live underground and make burrows with doors like you can see in this top picture right here. So they have this burrow, they make a little door, a little trap door, and then they'll come rushing out at the prey. And we'll see that in this video clip here. And so if you want, you can watch this video clip. It's good. It's like 9 minutes long. It definitely shows something cool. It shows a trapdoor spider versus a centipede. But these trapdoor spiders, you can see this picture here, they'll make kind of a trapdoor and then come rushing out. So it's a unique way of ambushing their prey. Now also, most spiders that people are familiar with create webs to catch their prey. and then they also wrap their prey in silk. So I'm going to show this quick little video clip that talks a little bit more specifically about spiders' ability to make silk, their web, and how it's used, and some of the unique characteristics of silk. So check it out.
Their webs are death traps. Massive in size, they're designed to deceive unwitting prey, and they're engineered with a precision and skill that even scientists can't replicate. 5 times stronger than steel and more elastic than nylon, the golden orb weaver spider's silk is both waterproof and pliable. It's also used to entomb victims, to store away for eating later. Spider silk is created in the female's abdomen. The silky solution, which is pure protein made of amino acids, is pushed along ducts into the spigots of the spider's spinnerets. Each spigot has valves that can wind the silk into the desired thickness, length, and even intensity of golden color. The female spends much of her day on web housekeeping. After all, it's her home and her victim-entrapping snare. The web is both a lure and a warning signal. The zigzag patterns in the center ward off birds that would otherwise ruin it. But the rest of the web, well, that's to secure dinner. The web strategy pays off almost every single time. Orb weavers have super sensitive hairs on their body that can detect the slightest vibration anywhere on their webs. Any insect that flies into the web is doomed. The sticky thread imprisons them, and this kind of incarceration always comes with a death sentence. The spider's venom glands deliver the fatal blow through hypodermic needle-like fangs. It's neurotoxic, and it works quickly. A struggling victim can easily damage the web, and these arachnid ladies ain't got no time for that.
So wrapping up that prey.
Spiders can't digest solids, so they have to liquefy their prey first, using digestive enzymes, which are brought up from the pit of their stomachs. And when she's done eating, she'll hang the lifeless corpses out to dry, further deterring birds from flying into her web.
Super cool. Now, like I was saying earlier, not all spiders spin webs, but all spiders do make silk. They just use them for lots of different purposes. Spider silk is manufactured within some silk glands, which is inside the spider's abdomen. And then silk is extruded in liquid from our form, through small finger-like appendages called spinnerets, which are on the posterior end of the animal. So it's on the back side of the spider's abdomen. As the spider brushes the liquid silk from the spinnerets, the silk proteins are orientated in a fashion that renders them a solid fiber. In many cases, spiders can even be identified from the kind of web that they weave. Scientists to this day are studying spider silk because it's one of the strongest known natural substances out there. It's quite a bit stronger than steel, but it's flexible. So imagine the possibilities, the engineering possibilities of a substance that's stronger than steel, but it's flexible. That would be pretty rad what we could do with that. Now, many spiders have poison glands that secrete toxin through their fangs, those chelicerae, used to bite and paralyze their prey. So spider venom is usually harmless to humans. It depends on the spider we're talking about here. And they usually only bite when threatened, as we were talking about in class the other day. The most dangerous venomous spiders to people are the Brazilian wandering spider, which is in Central and South America, and then the Sydney funnel web spider, which is from Australia. We have some funnel web spiders here in Utah, not deadly like this at all, but you'll see their spider webs like this bottom right-hand picture here, in the ground somewhere, or in like a crook, or in like a corner of your house. You'll see it because it's this kind of disorganized web with this hole in the middle. Now there's another video clip embedded in this PowerPoint, and I've just been showing you highlights. I don't want to kill you with video clips. So if you're interested, this one's specifically about the Brazilian wandering spider. You have a copy of the PowerPoint in your Canvas page, and you can go back and click on this. Now, there's two types of spiders that live in the U.S. That can give severe or even fatal bites, and we actually have both of these in Utah. One of them is native, so one of them is natural here, and one of them is introduced, and we don't see them super common. And I've actually been bit by one of these too. In class, I will try to show you my scar. It's not that impressive, but I'll try to show it to you. And so those two spiders that we have here are the black widow, which is this picture here. And you can always recognize them with their shiny black bodies, and they have this bright orange or red spot on their abdomen, on their ventral surface, that kind of looks like an hourglass, a time glass. And their venom is a neurotoxin, and it acts on the nervous system. And about 4 or 5 of every 1,000 reported bites are fatal. And this spider over here on the right is the brown recluse. So the black widow is native to Utah. We should have it here. The brown recluse is an introduced species. Now let's talk a little bit about black widow bites. So a person who gets bitten by a black widow spider might not know it right away, since the bite can sometimes feel just like a little pinprick. After 30 or 40 minutes, however, the area of the bite will start to swell and hurt a lot. And sometimes a person can get achy all over their body. Other symptoms can include weakness, nausea, vomiting, sweating, and headache. Doctors treat people who have been bitten by black widow spiders with medications to help relax the muscles and reduce the pain. And then they sometimes give an antivenin, which is a medication that helps fight the venom in the spider's bite. Now, the brown recluse, this is the one that I got bit by, and I'll tell you that story in class. But the brown recluse spiders are brown, obviously, and they bear a violin shape on the dorsal stripe on their cephalothorax. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Let me zoom in on this. Right there. Okay, so the cephalothorax is this segment of their body towards the head end, towards the anterior end, okay? And so you see this shape right here. So it's kind of a bigger round shape here, another round shape, and then this long line. And so if you look at that, it looks like almost like an upside down fiddle or violin or guitar, if you want to think of it that way. And so this upside down fiddle, this is the key characteristic that you look for when you're identifying a brown recluse. Now, their venom is hemolytic, which means that it destroys red blood cells. So it produces death of tissues and skin surrounding the bite. It's also something called a radial toxin, so a lot of times it digests the skin in a radial fashion. Their bite can be mild to serious, and it can be even fatal to small children and also older individuals. You can see where they are located mostly, so down here in the south and southeast. So they're not necessarily located in Utah, but they do come in on produce occasionally, and so that's why we have them here. Now, brown recluse spiders are most commonly found in midwestern and southern states of the U.S. They usually hang out in dark places. When they're outside, they like to spend time in piles of rocks, woods, leaves. If they come inside, brown recluse spiders will go to the dark closets, attics, basements. In the case of the one bit me, in the sheets of my bed. They aren't aggressive, and they bite only when disturbed, like if you roll over them on the middle of the night. A person who gets bitten by a brown recluse spider might not notice at first, just like the black widow, but after about 4 to 8 hours, the sting will start to hurt a little more, It might look like a bruise, or it might form a blister, which is what it did to me. It was a formed a blister. And it will be surrounded by a bluish purple area that turns black or brown and becomes crusty after a few days. Now, doctors treat people who have been bitten by a brown recluse spider with different types of medication like antibiotics, antihistamines, or pain medications. A skin graft, so that's where they take a piece of skin from your body from one area and move it to a different area, might be needed if the skin is really damaged at the area of the bite. Now, these next couple slides I'm going to show you, and I'm serious about this, they're really graphic. They show some pretty horrific cases of brown recluse bites. So, if you are sensitive or queasy to disgusting medical wound pictures, you're going to want to turn away for a bit or skip ahead in the video. Okay? Listen to my voice and I'll tell you when it's actually okay to look again. All right? So this first one, brown recluse bite, you can see how the toxin digests and destroys the flesh after the wound. When I got it, I didn't have anything even remotely close to this. And I'll explain mine. Mine didn't get bigger than about a quarter. So these are some really severe cases. Here's another one. And this would have been a case where they would have had to use some skin grafts. So this was in a hospital in Chile after the third surgery for a brown recluse bite. Okay, so really, really intense. Now, the gross pictures are over. So if you turned away or if you didn't want to see that, you can look back now. Now, another arachnid that we want to talk about is harvestmen. And this one we're all familiar with in Utah because they're all over the place. So most of us are familiar with the common harmless spider-like harvestmen, or we call them in Utah daddy long legs, because they have these crazy long wiggly legs. Now, unlike spiders have those two body sections, that abdomen and that cephalothorax. Harvestmen appear to only have one if you see them. This picture isn't the greatest at showing it, but if you look, you don't see two different segments, two different regions of the body. It's just one round little piece of their body. They do not have silk glands. They never build webs. They also lack venom. So that's one of the wives' tales that are out there, is that these harvestmen are actually more poisonous than a black widow. They just don't have the proper fangs to bite us humans. No, they don't have venom. But they can emit a weird odor when disturbed. Now, unlike spiders, they do not eat like with a straw-like sucking mechanism of liquids. They are actually omnivores, so plants and animals. So they ingest small chunks of solid organic material. Their chelicerae are too small to bite people. They have only 2 eyes, whereas spiders usually have many more, 8 or more. Now, scorpions is another arachnid, and they can also be found all over the world, including here in Utah. We have a few different kinds. Most scorpions live in tropical or semi-tropical regions, while some are found in dry desert regions. They usually hide during the day. They hunt at night, so that means that they're nocturnal, and they usually eat insects and spiders. And one of the cool things, if you ever want to look for these in the desert, is if you have a black light, a UV light, you can shine it on these animals in the dark, and they will glow green. So it's a good way to find them in the desert, is to have one of these black lights and shine it under rocks so you can look for them. Now, scorpions, their most recognizable and obvious characteristics are the exaggerated pair of claws that they have in the anterior end of the body. You see it here and here. And then they also have the stinger that's at the end of that big curved tail of theirs, as well as another characteristic of a scorpion. And they, of course, they use this to inject venom into their prey. Now, the Indian red scorpion is the most lethal scorpion in the world. Don't have to worry about that here in Utah. It's found in India, Pakistan, and Nepal. Its venom primarily affects the cardiovascular and pulmonary systems in humans. We have a small little scorpion in Utah, in the deserts of Utah, called the bark scorpion, and I believe that's the most poisonous one that we have in Utah. We also have, I think it's called the giant hairy scorpion in Utah, which is the biggest one in North America. And they're like about 6 inches long. They're quite big, but their sting, even though they look really scary, their sting isn't quite as bad as the tiny little bark scorpion. Another little video clip embedded here on scorpions that you can watch if you wish. Now, ticks and mites are another arachnid. All of these guys, I hate ticks. We have a few different kinds in Utah. The unique feature differentiating mites and ticks from other arachnids is that the head, thorax, and abdomen are all fused into one body segment. So you can't see the body segments on this animal because they're all fused into one. They live in virtually all environments. They can be herbivores, predators, or temporary parasites, and this is mostly in the case of mites. Dust mites feed on organic detritus, such as flakes of shed human skin. They flourish in stable environments of dwellings. House dust mites are a common cause of asthma and allergic symptoms worldwide. These guys are really tiny. There's even a kind that lives on people's eyelashes, so they're very, very tiny. You wouldn't be able to see them. Now, ticks are ectoparasites, and remember, ecto means on the outside of the animal. So these things attack or suck on the blood on the outside of the animal. They don't go endo. They're not inside. So ticks are ectoparasites that feed on the blood of their host. They're attracted to motion, to body heat, to carbon dioxide that we breathe out. And that's why they are attracted to hosts such as dogs, cats, rodents, rabbits, cattle, small mammals, humans, etc. Somebody in my neighborhood gets bit by one of these every year. My wife seems to get bit a couple of times a year. I find them crawling on me. I haven't been bit yet. Now, mites are known to cause severe itching. Most humans have microscopic mites living all over your bodies. I know that freaks you out. Some mites can transmit disease. This scabii is a type of parasitic mite that's responsible for scabies, which is one of the 3 most common skin disorders in children. As the mites burrow in the skin and lay their eggs inside the skin, the infestation leads to a relentless itching and angry rash. Again, I have another video clip that you can watch for this if you wish. Now, ticks live on land, primarily in woods and pastures. They're blood-sucking parasites. They can become enormously distended with blood after feeding on a host. And so what that means is they can swell up a lot. So you can see what a tiny little tick looks like. But after they've fed on blood, their whole body swells up like you can see in this picture down here with blood, and on this poor little rabbit right here. Those are all ticks on him. Okay. Ticks are among the world's premier disease vectors. That means that they carry a lot of disease. Here in Utah, there are some cases of Lyme disease. There's also something called Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which ironically enough isn't really found in the Rocky Mountain region very often, but they can definitely transmit diseases. So they also carry a great variety of infectious agents, including viral agents, bacterial, and fungal. Now, Lyme disease, as I was mentioned, is a chronic disabling disease caused by a bacteria that's carried by the deer tick, and we do have deer ticks here in Utah. One sign of Lyme disease is this classic, you can see it in this picture here, this picture here, this picture here, this classic bullseye rash. It looks like a bullseye around the bite or joints. Now, if Lyme disease goes untreated, more serious symptoms can occur over time. And another video clip that you can watch, a couple of them on Lyme disease if you wish. Now, Rocky Mountain spotted fever is an infection also caused by a bacterium. It's carried by another kind of tick called a dog tick, which we also have. I see, like up here in the mountains, I see a lot of deer ticks. I don't really see the dog ticks as much as often. So I do see both, though. Now, symptoms include a rash, a headache, high fever, inflammatory changes of affected blood vessels. Although Rocky Mountain spotted fever can be lethal, it is curable, and it's more common in the south, like Tennessee in that area. The rash usually makes its first appearance on your wrist and ankles and can spread in both directions, down into the palms of your hands, the soles of your feet, and up your arms and legs and your torso. Now, when a mite or tick bites, its entire head is thrust into a wound. An anchoring structure below the jaws holds firmly to the wound, In the mite, the structure is smooth, and the mite is easily brushed off of you. In the tick, though, the structure is toothed, and the ticks can be removed from the skin with tweezers. They can be hard to remove. So you want to try to remove the entire tick, not just the body. So when you're removing a tick, you want to get those tweezers down as close to the skin and close to the head as possible and pull straight out. And then afterwards, you disinfect the site with soap, water, rubbing alcohol, hydrogen peroxide. You do not want to use things like matches or other like nasty chemicals to try to get the tick off of you. That is a wives' tale. One of the things that can do, like if you pour some sort of nasty chemical on the tick, it can cause it to regurgitate, and it can actually cause it to have a greater chance of transmitting disease to you by that type of stress that you're promoting it. So grabbing it with a pair of tweezers as close to the body as possible and yanking it straight out is the best way to remove it, and then clean very well afterwards. There's a video clip you can watch about this. That is all I have for you. I know that's plenty. Ask me questions if you have them, and I'll be showing you some more information about spiders in class.